Good evening. Welcome to Reading Things with a Southern Accent 2020, episode 49. That means tomorrow is episode 50. And do you realize what a monumental milestone that is? We're talking 50 episodes of this. I think my volume is up on my phone. It was. So, since around March the 20th, I don't know where that sound's coming from. It's making me crazy though. I do apologize for my attention deficit disorder. Oh, look at this. This is not on either. There we go. It's been a few days. I had to reset everything in the office here in the studio. I had things not connected properly. I didn't know why certain things weren't working, so it took me a little bit to get things back in order, but I did. Huge, exciting news tonight. The producer is back with me in the studio, which makes me very happy. She is always a very welcome addition, a welcome attraction, I don't know, support. She's very tan, and I'm happy about that. Tonight we're kicking off the second week of Dr. Seuss with a story that I have never heard before, and it is Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose. Now, I bought these Dr. Seuss books at a local bookstore called The Next Page, which is on Main Street, Frisco. And I can only assume that they selected this because of the frequency of moose in the area. Excuse me. That hadn't happened in a while. In the last 2 weeks, it's the producer. When she comes back, I get belchy. In the last 2 weeks, we've had 3-ish moose sightings in the neighborhood. And one was a moose family. It was a bull and a mama and a baby, which is a cow. The mama is the cow. And a calf. Anyhow, I can only assume that that's why they chose this book. And when I saw it, I was like, well, that's the perfect book to read here in Frisco, Colorado, because moose. I have countless pictures of moose in the neighborhood, around the area. So we chose tonight, with the help of the producer, thank goodness she has returned and is able to contribute, Thidwick the Big-Hearted Moose. So, where are the pictures? What pictures? What is she talking about? Oh, for crying out loud. I can't show them right now. Thidwick, okay, first of all, if you haven't tuned into any of Dr. Seuss here on Reading Things with a Southern Accent, Theodore Seuss Ted Geisel is his real name. Dr. Seuss was one of his pen names. He was born in 1904. He died in 1991. He wrote and illustrated 44 children's books. He is responsible, and he wrote 60 children's books. The last 16 of that number, other people illustrated, so he used a pen name, mostly a name Theo Lessig, which is Geisel, spelled backwards, when he did not illustrate his own book. Other pieces of trivia are he originally pronounced his last name Seuss or Zeus, not Seuss, but he switched it because it rhymed with Mother Goose, and at the time that was a good idea. And he wasn't really a doctor. He just put the doctor in front of his name because his father wanted him to be a medical professional. Feel a sneeze coming on. Sorry about that. Hope that didn't get on you. Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose. Published in 1948, Thidwick, a moose in a herd numbering approximately 60, who subsist mainly on moose moss and live on the northern shore of Lake Winnebago, grants a small bug's request to ride on his antlers free of charge. Brief synopsis of the story is the story explores the limits of hospitality and sharing. Thidwick, at length, it is an exemplification of the idea of property rights, and particularly of Locke's formulation of property rights. I don't even know what this means. Scoble argues that Thidwick is badly mistaken in viewing the other animals as guests, and that the story demonstrates this. In a later essay in the same volume, Henry Cribbs makes a similar point, considering whether Thidwick is a case of squatters' rights. So, Thidwick, hey, Beth Keller, this story is about a moose. Shortly after the book was published, I'm getting this. See, I'm so glad she's back. The New York Times said Thidwick is a masterpiece of economy and a shrewd satire on the easy mark who lets the conventions of society get the better of him. So, not only was Dr. Seuss an accomplished illustrator, author, he was in the military, smart guy, he also wrote entrenched in these children's stories, satire. The guy, I mean, I guess you have to be smart to do satire. Hey, look, it looks like home. See that? Can you see? So, Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose, written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss. Here we go. Dr. Seuss, just living in Arkansas these days.
Doug and my brother are having a conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Up at Lake Winnebago. It's been a few days. Huh? I'm getting it. The far northern shore lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more. They all go around in a big happy bunch, looking for nice tender moose moss to munch. Up at Lake Winnebago one day, they were lunching, just strolling along and enjoying their munching. For the moose moss that day was especially fine. When it happened that Thidwick, that last moose in line, saw a bingle bug sitting. The bug called out, "Hey, it's such a long road, and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" "Of course not," smiled Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be made of some use. There's room to spare, and I'm happy to share. Be my guest, and I hope that you're comfortable there." So the bingle bug picked out a nice easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moss to eat. Well, an hour or so later, the bug heard a squeak, and he heard a small voice of a tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a fine place. That moose seems quite friendly. He has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think he would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think you'll find that the moose won't object. He's the big-hearted kind." "I accept," said the spider, with joy and delight, and he started to web on the horn to the right. While the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song, and a fresh little I have never read this book before. Zinazoo bird came along. He stopped and he stared. He chirped, "Well, well, well, what a smart place to build. What a great place to dwell. I've been living on trees since I was born, but there's something new. Why not live on a horn?" If there's room there for 2, then there's room there for 3. There's plenty of room, laughed the bug, and it's free. Thidwick stopped walking. What was all that talking? These guests had caught Thidwick, the moose, unawares. Hey, he called out, what goes on there upstairs? Just building a nest, sir, the Zinazoo said, and began yanking out hairs out of poor Thidwick's head. And he plucked out exactly 204. Don't worry, he laughed, you can always grow more. Then he dozed off to sleep in his fine moose hair nest. This bird, murmured Thidwick, is sort of a pest. But I'm a good sport, so I'll just let him rest. For a host above all must be nice to his guest. Besides, now it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they'll go away. But alas, the next morning, the sun's early light brought to Thidwick's sad eyes a most unwelcome sight. Meet my wife, said the bird. I was married last night. And perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that her uncle is coming to live with us too. You're a very fine host, so I knew you'd be willing. Then the uncle, a woodpecker, started in drilling. All Thidwick's friends shouted, get rid of those pests. I would, but I can't, sobbed poor Thidwick. They're guests. Guests indeed, his friends answered, and all of them frowned. If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can't stay with us because you're just not our sort. And they all turned their backs and they walked off with a snort. Now the big friendless moose walked alone and forlorn, with four great big woodpecker holes in his horn. Something funny? What holes, whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied him. What holes to hide nut? Oh, he says, what holes, like in an exclamation. What holes, whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied him. What holes to hide nuts in? Mind if I tried them? They're yours, called the woodpecker. Get right inside them. This big-hearted moose runs a public hotel. Bring your nuts. Bring your wife. Bring your children as well. So the whole squirrel family all jumped on pell-mell. And the very next thing the poor animal knew, a bobcat and a turtle were living there too. Now, what was the big-hearted moose going to do? Well, what would you do if it happened to you? You couldn't say scat, because that wouldn't be right. You couldn't shout scram, because that isn't polite. A host has to put up with all kinds of pests. For a host, above all, must be nice to his guests. So you'd try hard to smile, and you'd try to look sweet, and you'd go right on looking for a moose moss to eat. But now it was winter, and that wasn't easy. For moose moss gets scarce when the weather gets freezy. The food was soon gone on the cold northern shore of Lake Winnebago. There just was no more. This one's getting tricky. And all of Thidwick's friends swam away in a bunch to the south of the lake where there's moose moss to munch. You ever seen a moose swim? It's quite majestic. He watched the herd leaving, and then Thidwick knew he'd starve if he stayed here. He'd have to go too. He stepped in the water, then oh, what a fuss. Stop, screamed his guests. You can't do this to us. These horns are our home, and you've no right to take our home to the far distant side of the lake. Be fair, Thidwick begged with a lump in his throat. We're fair, said the bug. We'll decide by vote. All those in favor of going say aye, and all those in favor of staying say nay. Aye, shouted Thidwick, but when he was done, Nay, they all yelled. He lost 11-1. We win, screamed the guests, by a very large score, and poor starving Thidwick climbed back to the shore. Then do you know what those pests did? They asked in some more. They asked in a fox who jumped in from the trees. They asked in some mice, and they asked in some fleas. They asked in a bear, and then, if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Poor Thidwick sank down with a groan to his knees, and then came something that made his heart freeze. Bullets came zinging right past Thidwick's face. She's laughing. He's in peril. Guns were bang binging all over the place. Get that moose, Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again, and shoot straight, one and all. We must get his head for the Harvard Club wall. I knew I didn't like them Harvard people. Thidwick took to his heels with that load on his head. With 500 pounds on his horns, the moose fled. He could have run faster without all those pests, but a host above all must be nice to his guests. Up canyon, off cliff, over wild rocky trail with bullets bouncing around him like hail. Up gully, through gulch, and down slippery sloughs. With his hard-hearted guest raced the soft-hearted moose. Then finally they had him because of those pests. He had run out of luck because of those guests on his horns. He was stuck. He gasped. He felt faint. And the whole world grew fuzzy. Thidwick was finished completely. Or was he? Can you imagine reading this to like a 4-year-old? Finished? Not Thidwick. Decidedly not. It's true. He was in the most terrible spot, but now he remembered a thing he forgot, a wonderful something that happens each year to the horns of all moose and the horns of all deer. I know what it is. Today was the day. Thidwick happened to know that old horns come off so that new ones can grow. And he called to the pests on his horns as he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to them. Keep them. They're yours. As for me, I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. And he swam Winnebago and found his old bunch and arrived just in time for a wonderful lunch at the south of the lake where there's moose moss to munch. His old horns today are where you know they would be. His guests are still on them, all stuffed, as they should be. And that is the end. That is the best Dr. Seuss book I've ever read. I've never read that one before. All those moose moochers got what was coming to them. Bunch of suckers. All right. Man, I have had something in my eye this entire time, and it's driving me absolutely crazy. Whew. All right. Got any questions? Got any people? We'll sure not to invite any stragglers. Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight. It is Tuesday, May the 19th, 2020. Tomorrow will be Wednesday. Tomorrow I go earlier. I usually do it around 5:30. Just, to remind everybody. And tomorrow will be episode 50. So we'll have to do something good, like Hop on Pop or...
Ooh.
What else we got? All right, I did the Cat in the Hat. I got Sneetches. They're right there. Don't drop all those batteries. That'll make a lot of noise.
Green eggs.
I did green eggs and ham. I did fox and socks. I've done the cat in the hat. I have not done hop on pop. I have not done the butter battle. I've never read the butter battle book either. Here, give me this one. We're going to do this tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right, tomorrow, here's our book. The Butter Battle book. Another one that we've never read before. Episode 50, right here. It has come to fruition with the producer's help. This book was written in 1984? All right, 1984. I was 11. That was the year my brother graduated from high school. All right, thank you for tuning in. My name is Murph, and this has been, good grief, Reading Things with a Southern Accent 2020, episode 49. Stay safe out there. Don't go anywhere without a mask unless you live in a state that doesn't require masks. Then it's okay, right? Is that how that works?
What?
Okay. Don't go anywhere without a mask unless you live in a state that doesn't require masks. Like,
Makes your throat feel tight.
thank you for joining us. I appreciate every single one of you. Todd Spivey. Fred. Fred! Fred is the guy that I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with. He is. How's it going, Fred? Hope you're well. In Idaho, right? You're in Idaho. You got a little kid. Have a good night. We're gonna go inside. We're gonna make dinner. It's a Alfredo broccoli chicken bake. Looking forward to it. As always, have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow, and please wash your hands. Good night.